If you've ever wondered how far love can carry two people when everything else is stripped away, or if you enjoy survival at sea stories filled with grit, resourcefulness, and courage, or if you want to hear a true account of a couple stranded for months after their boat was destroyed by a whale, if so, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I'll be reviewing A Marriage at Sea by Sophie Elmhirst. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and on this channel, I review every kind of book I read, from history to fantasy to survival stories like today's, so that you can decide which ones might be right for you. Today's book is A Marriage at Sea by Sophie Elmhirst. I first heard about this story through a few different podcasts. The Economist featured it on their book list, and I was reminded of it again when Phoebe Judge covered Maurice and Marilyn Bailey's ordeal on her show, This Is Love, which I should also mention that this book is titled Maurice and Marilyn in the UK. I don't know if it's just the UK or if it's everywhere outside of US markets, but that is something of note. So I should probably put that in the title or something. But this book tells about their journey, and it has actually fascinated journalists and sailors and romantics alike. And I think that the author takes their story and turns it into a very gripping and modern retelling. Speaking of which, let's talk about Sophie Elmhirst just a bit. She is a British prize-winning journalist and a feature writer. She has written long-form pieces for The Guardian and The Economist's 1843 magazine, and she serves as a contributing editor at The Gentlewoman and Harper's Bazaar. In 2020, she won the British Press Award for Feature Writer of the Year, adding to a career that's already brought her a Foreign Press Award and a long listing for the Orwell Prize. She first came across the incredible tale of Maurice and Marilyn Bailey while researching our cultural fascination with escape, and the story clearly stayed with her. A Marriage at Sea is her first book, and it is a work that combines her sharp journalistic instincts with the craft of narrative nonfiction, bringing the Baileys' love story and survival ordeal vividly to life. This is an exciting and harrowing tale, and part of what makes it so powerful is not knowing exactly what's going to happen next. If you don't want to know what happens to Maurice and Marilyn Bailey, then I recommend skipping over the summary section until after you finish the book. For everyone else, let's dive into the details. Maurice and Marilyn Bailey were an ordinary British couple from Derby who longed for something more than suburban routines. Maurice, born in 1933, grew up isolated and self-conscious, struggling with illness and a stutter, but he found purpose in hobbies like rock climbing, sailing, and flying. Marilyn, 9 years younger, was bright, confident, and raised by her aunt and uncle in a protective but confining household. Their meeting was almost accidental, but their bond formed quickly. She brought him confidence, and he opened up a world of adventure to her. Both shared an unusual conviction for the 1960s. They didn't want children, preferring instead to pour their lives into exploration. Together, they dreamed of freedom. By 1968, they had sold their bungalow, commissioned a boat, and committed to leaving England behind. Their vessel, named Ireland, became both their home and their future. After years of preparation, they set off on a voyage around the world, determined to reach New Zealand by way of the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Pacific. The couple thrived in their self-reliant partnership, Maurice captaining, navigating by sextant and stars, and Marilyn provisioning, cooking, and tending to the rhythms of life at sea. Their friends thought them a bit reckless, especially as they sailed without a radio transmitter, but for the Baileys, isolation was a bit of the point. In 1972, they crossed the Atlantic successfully, spending nearly a month at sea and celebrating their arrival in the Caribbean with new sailing friends. From there, they made their way to Panama, through the canal, and into the Pacific. It was here that everything changed. On March 4th, 1973, as Marilyn finished her night watch and went below to wake Maurice, a violent crash jolted their world. A 40-foot sperm whale thrashing in its death throes struck their boat. In minutes, water surged through a gaping hole in the hull. Despite frantic efforts to plug the leak, Ireland was lost. They salvaged what they could: water, tins of food, Marilyn's diary, Maurice's navigational tools, and climbed into their life raft and dinghy as the boat slipped beneath the Pacific. What followed was one of the longest survival ordeals ever endured at sea. They were adrift for 118 days. The couple faced scorching sun by day and freezing nights. Their skin blistered with burns and sores from the salt and heat. Fresh water was their greatest struggle. They caught rain whenever they could, storing it in plastic containers, but in the dry stretches, they learned to squeeze liquid from fish flesh to drink. Food ran out quickly, forcing them to catch seabirds and turtles. The turtles were both food and water. Their blood and flesh sustained the Baileys when nothing else did. Sharks often circled their raft, sometimes ramming the dinghy, a constant reminder that the ocean was both life and death. And on more than one occasion, they actually caught the sharks, and they would also eat those. They kept busy to stay sane. Maurice recorded navigational calculations, still charting their drift even when they had no vessel to steer. Marilyn wrote in her diary, embroidered scraps of cloth, and kept meticulous ration records. They talked, they argued, they supported one another, and they clung to routines. And at least 7 ships passed them by during their adrift, sometimes so close that they thought for sure they should be able to see them. But nobody noticed their desperate signals. When the first boat passed, they had some flares that they tried shooting off and quickly discovered they were no longer working. So it was a matter of them just screaming and yelling and trying to get as much attention as they could when they would see another ship passing. And that apparently just was not successful. And all of those near misses were crushing, but they forced themselves not to give in to despair. Well, I will say that one of the differences is that Marilyn is doing much better than Maurice. Maurice starts to struggle much more so than Marilyn. She really seems to be the one holding them together. After nearly 4 months at sea, in July 1973, they were finally spotted and rescued by a Korean fishing vessel. They were emaciated, scarred, and weak. They had drifted thousands of miles from where their yacht went down. But survival was not the end of their story. The couple went on to publish a memoir and even returned to sailing, unwilling to let fear erase their passion for the sea. But the ordeal certainly left deep marks. Marilyn adapted more easily, returning to work and recounting their story with some quiet resilience. Maurice, however, as I said before, struggled. The memoirs of those endless days haunted him, and he often wrestled with depression. He even mentioned frequently contemplating suicide. But their marriage remained an anchor for both of them, because the sea had certainly taken some from them that never could be fully restored. The book blends the adventure of this true survival story with the portrait of a marriage. Maurice's insecurity and seriousness, Marilyn's strength and quiet wit, and their shared defiance of convention are as central to the story as the whale or the ocean or the raft. It is a love story in many respects, not just about the initial romantic elements of love, but of love of a long enduring relationship. It's a love story and a shipwreck tale in equal measures. And it's also a reminder that survival is as much about the bond between two people as it is about physical endurance. Rather than simply retelling the Bailey's own memoir, Sophie Elmhirst reframes their survival as both a physical and an emotional trial. She pays attention not only to the ordeal at sea, but also to their lives before and after. The decisions that led them to risk everything, and the way their marriage operated under strain, and the psychological toll in the years that followed. This isn't just a survival story, it's also an exploration of what it means to chase freedom and what it may cost. I really enjoyed this book, though I'll admit that by the time I picked it up, I had already heard a fair amount of the Bailey story through podcasts and articles. That meant there weren't as many shocking twists left for me, but that didn't lessen the impact. Reading Sophie Elmhirst's detailed retelling with all the small choices, the daily struggles, and the quiet moments of fear or resilience still has quite the impact on me. It's a book that is 2 parts inspiring and 1 part anxiety-inducing. On the one hand, their resourcefulness, commitment, and sheer stubbornness to survive are remarkable. On the other hand, Elmhirst doesn't shy away from the terror of drifting for months in a flimsy raft, watching ship after ship pass you by, never knowing if you'll see land again. By the end of their ordeal, Maurice and Marilyn had been forged together in a way few couples ever experience. But the story also makes clear that they were changed permanently, and not always in ways that are appealing, especially for Maurice, who carried deep scars from the experience. Even so, the resilience they showed, the way they leaned on each other to survive, and the honesty in how the book portrays the aftermath makes it a story worth celebrating. Who is this for? This book is for readers who are drawn to true survival stories and want to experience the gritty reality of what it takes to endure months at sea. If you've read Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand and appreciated the combination of human resilience, suffering, and determination, you'll likely connect with A Marriage at Sea. It's also for readers interested in unconventional love stories, because Maurice and Marilyn's marriage is at the heart of everything. Their decision to abandon suburban safety for adventure and the way their bond both sustained and strained them during the ordeal gives the book a deeply human center. And finally, it's for anyone who enjoys narrative nonfiction written with a novelist's touch. Sophie Elmhirst doesn't just present the facts, she pulls you into the Bailey's world, letting you feel the monotony, the fear, and the fleeting joys that carried them through their 118 days adrift. Who is this not for? Well, this book is not for readers who shy away from tension or who get easily overwhelmed by existential dread. Spending 118 days adrift at sea with dwindling supplies and no certainty of rescue carries a constant undercurrent of anxiety that Elmhirst captures vividly. If the thought of endless horizons, circling sharks, or the fragile line between life and death makes you too uneasy, this story might be difficult to sit with. It's also not for readers who want a clean, uplifting arc. While the Baileys' survival is inspiring, the ordeal left lasting scars, and the book doesn't soften the reality of how fundamentally it changed them. A Marriage at Sea is both a survival epic and a love story. It captures the Baileys' courage, stubbornness, and flaws in equal measure, leaving you with a mix of awe, dread, and admiration. Sophie Elmhirst's writing balances the romance of adventure with the brutal reality of survival, and by the end you'll feel like you've been out there on the raft with Maurice and Marilyn. It's inspiring, unsettling, and unforgettable. Of course, I'd love to hear what you think. Have you read A Marriage at Sea, or do you have another survival story that has left an impression on you? Please let me know what you're thinking in the comments. And while you're here, please go find more of my videos that you'll find interesting. I cover everything, at least I try to cover everything, hence the name of the channel, Spencer Reads Everything. And if you are enjoying my videos, please share them. The more people that know about my channel, the more videos I can make. And don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.